Hello and welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla. Of course, I am your mayor of this bunch of monsters in this joint. This is my vice mayor. He helps me keep everybody in line. He's your thunderstick. It's one and only Jesse Friedman. Of course, we're also joined by our comptroller, the one and only Jesse Jr. Is here. Great to have him here as well. Jesse, he's looking handsome today, that guy.
Yes, Jesse Jr. does have his own shot on today's show.
Correct.
And for those of you joining us on audio only,
you're missing that.
You're really missing
It's a reason to definitely watch the show on YouTube and not just listen on the audio side, but you should subscribe everywhere that you can subscribe. Of course, we thank you guys for being here, whether you're on the audio side or whether you're watching us live right now on YouTube. And we do have some interesting information that's kind of developing about where we can watch some Arizona Diamondbacks games in 2023.
Are you saying we have TV news, Derek?
We have TV. Well,
do we have actual TV
do
news
we?
to discuss
I don't know,
today?
because we still have to figure out what this means in regards to what this article from The Athletic is stating. Essentially, it would appear that that Major League Baseball is going to be broadcasting Arizona Diamondbacks games. They are one of 3 teams that MLB will be broadcasting next year. What that means remains to be seen as far as the availability and where those games will be broadcast, who they might partner with to broadcast those games. But at least it would appear for 2024 that things may be, they may remain unchanged as they were once MLB took over at the midpoint of last season.
Yeah, this report kind of went under the radar a little bit. I think this was found within an article that Evan Drellich wrote a couple of hours ago. This article is about Rob Manfred making some comments about a half-league streaming service that Rob Manfred hopes Major League Baseball to have up and running by 2025. It would be difficult practically to get digital streaming rights for all 30 teams. So it sounds like, they're hoping for around half the league to be involved. And it wouldn't just be like MLB.TV. This would be, in-market availability would be a thing. So if you were in any of those 15 markets, you would be able to watch your team's games as well as the other team's games in outside of your market as well. So that's really what this story was about. But yes, within this story, Evan Drellich has a line that says that Major League Baseball will broadcast games for the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, and the Padres, as you said earlier. So this is sort of a news we've been waiting for a while here. I don't know if it is. As you were alluding to, like the full scope of TV news that we'll get this offseason. There are still some questions to be answered about, what does availability look like? If you are a Cox subscriber or whatever, right. What does this mean practically for you? We don't know that entirely yet. But Major League Baseball took over Diamondbacks broadcasts about midway through last season. And it always seemed like, the most likely outcome was going to be Major League Baseball just continuing to do that. And now it looks like that is, in fact, what is going to happen.
So as it stands right now, it seems likely the D-backs games will be available on MLB.TV in market for $20 per month like they were last year.
That's what they did last year. Yeah, last year they had the $19.99 per month thing, which got you in-market access to Diamondbacks games. It wasn't included if you were already an MLB.TV subscriber. It was an extra thing you had to pay. You could also just buy it as a standalone service without having MLB.TV. I assume that would continue for 2024. That wasn't part of Evan Drellich's article, but that's the way it was last year. And if MLB is doing it again, I imagine they would probably have something at least very similar in 2024.
There are a lot of things developing. There are a lot of things cooking when it comes to the sports world and streaming services. We do know that the Warner Group and Fox and ESPN are coming together for a new streaming service that will feature MLB games, and it will be broadcast with all of those services that you might have, whether it's Max or whether it's ESPN Plus or whatever. You'll be able to watch those games there. We also know that Amazon has shown a tremendous amount of interest in bailing out Bally Sports and trying to get them out of this situation, but not just out of the kindness of their hearts. Amazon isn't just some benevolent hero in this situation. They are doing this with the purpose of obtaining streaming rights for whatever sports teams that they can as well. Right now is a weird time. The Bally Sports, situation with a lot of teams in a lot of different leagues, not just in Major League Baseball, kind of, set the market value at a certain amount, and then basically, which seemed very high. Like, teams were getting paid a lot of money for their regional sports rights, and of course, what ends up happening is it doesn't work out for Bally business wise, and that's why they are no longer in this game. They're trying to do everything they can to get out of it. I still find it amazing that like Sinclair Broadcasting Group was able to essentially create Diamond Sports Group and then have it be another extension farther away from them with taking the Bally name. And like when all is said and done, they paid money for a Bally name, right, that they'll be able to walk away from. But the Bally Group, which is still going to be involved in gaming and casinos and hotels and such, is still going to take some sort of reputation damage on that whole thing. And they're not involved in any way, shape, or form. So, hey, be careful who you license your name out to, kids. That's the lesson of today. But more importantly, we need to know where Diamondbacks games are going to be. There has been no update on exactly what streaming services they will be available, or if there will be any change. It feels like the way that MLB took over kind of seamlessly last year is kind of what they would do again this year, right? Like, they've created an additional channel. Everything, the infrastructure is in place for them to continue to broadcast Diamondbacks games, Rockies games, and Padres games all in the same manner that they did last year, which, like I said, it was a pretty seamless transition. We didn't really have a lot of bumps as far as like, oh, hey, where do I watch it now? I know some people suffered from that. I know some people, as we discussed yesterday, are dealing with like the Dish Network thing and couldn't watch games or whatever's going on there. But I don't think that was related to this. It's just MLB did a good job of stepping in and broadcasting these games.
Yeah, I think it was relatively seamless last year. And yeah, I mean, I think Elise asked a good question. I wonder if the D-backs are getting any increased revenue from this or more than, when Major League Baseball took over last year. That's a really big factor. Like, the Diamondbacks,
Correct.
Their TV revenue is really significant for them. It's something that when we talked with Ken Kendrick a couple months ago, he didn't seem overly concerned about it. He talked about how the Diamondbacks would have a very viable TV deal. But at that point, he talked about a potentially multifaceted approach, involving multiple different partners. And I'm not sure if this news necessarily means that that's out of the question. Maybe it's possible for the Diamondbacks to also be partnering with someone else,
Yeah.
Maybe as far as the distribution of these games is concerned. So this isn't necessarily the complete solution from a broadcasting perspective for the Diamondbacks. But
it seems unlikely. It seems like the value here is too high for the Diamondbacks to turn to like Arizona Family Sports or one of those kind of broadcasting channels.
It would be weird. Like, if it was a free, if the Diamondbacks were to go on like a non-cable, just like a free over the air situation, that would be a little odd at this point, because Major League Baseball is asking people to buy a subscription service to have paid access to these games, most likely, we assume. And so that wouldn't really make sense if there was also a free option to watch games at the same time. So I'd be pretty surprised if there really was a significant free option when all is said and done.
It makes the move to put the Suns on that channel like that much more of a iconic move by Matt Ishbia for people to love him as an owner, because the Suns also could have been on an option, I'm sure, where they got more money than maybe that they were getting getting from this deal on cable, on satellite, something like that. And instead they're broadcasting their games for free, on Channel 3, which is just, it's great, because we all want to watch our sports. We all want to have access to our sports. And I think at the end of the day, we want to take some comfort in knowing where those sports are going to be available to us. The streaming landscape is changing all the time, with these companies merging and becoming one, changing how much they charge, changing what's what's available to them. I'm gonna have to watch WWE on Netflix now, Jesse. They struck a deal with Netflix for like billions of dollars, so that's where I have to watch my pro wrestling. Things are changing all the time, and I think it's realizing that the streaming rights for something like a sports team or even like the WWE, very, very valuable, and especially for a streaming service that needs that kind of anchor, something that is going to bring people in every day, all the time. Netflix is one of those streaming services, for instance, that you go on there and you can kind of watch everything you've missed out on in like a few weeks and then cancel the service and then get it again maybe a little bit down the road. Like there's options like that with some of the streaming services where you can catch up on their content and not need to continue to pay month after month after month for it. When your sports team is on that streaming service, you have to keep it. You have to watch your team there.
Yeah.
And that's what makes things like these teams, regional sports streaming rights so valuable.
Yeah. I will say, as far as the Suns situation is concerned, I don't find Suns broadcasts, at least personally, I'm not an expert in this, but I don't think they look as good as they used to. The national broadcast, in my opinion, tends to look better than the Suns.
That's fair. Yeah.
You kind of take a step back in terms of quality when you go that route of just going on the non-cable. At least what we've seen from them, it just the graphics on the screen and whatnot. Right. I think the quality is a little bit lower. Whereas when Major League Baseball took over Diamondbacks broadcast last year, I think it was actually a step up from what Bally Sports Arizona had been doing. There were more camera angles, which
right.
of course we saw. I think a lot of it, the complete product looked really good all the way around.
Hey we have noted Suns expert who he has to be on every goddamn show today. It's Espo here to talk more about the Suns, as if they didn't just have 2.5 hours straight of Suns talk.
Well, I didn't talk about the broadcast, for God's sake. I talked about trades. I'm talking about the am I Jesse Jr. right now?
Now you're Jesse Jr.
All right, that's okay.
So how do we feel about Royce O'Neal?
That's not what I'm here to talk about. You bring up the broadcast, and
sure.
I think you're 100% right. Why the Diamondbacks looked so professional and crisp is because MLB used the same exact graphics package and transitions and all that they used for MLB stuff on, and used that throughout the teams that did that.
Right.
The Suns created all that in-house, their own music, their own graphics, and I think you do take a step down in that case. Because when you're with a Bally's, they provide you, here's all the packages. You just tailor it by changing the logo and all that. Jacob could probably tell you more, but you tailor those things. So I think you do take a step down. I think that's a valid point in what you got to think about with that.
But when Matt Ishbia does that, right? Like what he's trying to do at the end of the day is kind of win people over, like in this transition phase from like one ownership group that was very problematic to like him now being the owner, right? So like there is the case that the Suns could have probably received more money elsewhere, but they chose to do this as kind of a benevolent move in a way.
Definitely. Okay. Maybe in the short term, benevolent, fine. I agree. And it's good PR, but this is the future. You have a local over-the-air broadcast and a streaming option. You take whatever money you're going to get from the local broadcast for the older demo that you're not going to reach with the streaming package.
Right.
And then you hope that you basically get people used to paying $20 a month, $30 a month to access their team, and it just happens in perpetuity. So then you're taking all that off the top at that point. This is the future. And he just looked at it and went, let's get in there 3, 4, 5 years before the rest of the people do it, get some good PR for it, and test our fortunes, because we can afford to do that. I think my biggest question is, does Ken Kendrick feel like he can do that, or how important was that money that was coming from Bally's that you need to find that sort of
it feels fairly important. And I mean, obviously there's a difference there between the Suns and how they fill that building up at the Footprint Center versus, the attendance at Chase Field at times. There's a lot of things to be said there, but definitely we do know that production can take a step down, and we've experienced that with Jacob back here behind the ones and twos with Damon gone. So we definitely
know
understand
all about what it looks like when the production crew.
Does Damon ever set up a Jesse Jr. shot?
Oh, let's get that Jesse Jr. shot in real fast. Let's get that.
Derek, can you give us a voice for Jesse Jr.?
No, something like that. I don't know. I said earlier, he probably sound like, "Hey, you guys," something like that. I think very cartoony. But I will also say that thanks to working here, thanks to working with Jacob and our wonderful producers, we do have an idea of how much work goes into all of those cool graphics that you do see on screen when you're watching any sports game, right?
The Suns aren't great, but they did get the music right.
Yeah, that's true.
The Bally music got pretty monotonous after a while.
It did.
That Suns music that they have rolling on their broadcasts, it does not get old. Granted, it's only been a few months, but I have not grown tired of it. It's very classic.
Big fan.
So.
Also, it reminds me of like one time I was watching an NFL game, and down on the score bug, they just had like a little like light bouncing back and forth, like kind of shining on the two teams' logos. And it infuriated me because I was like, some producer had to do that. He had to take time to make that. And for what purpose? Like, it's so just not even something that needed to be done. But of course, hopefully we will see the quality not drop off no matter what the option is. And honestly, I think with MLB broadcasting, at least knowing that in 2024, I feel like we're going to just see everything kind of be the same as we saw towards the second half of last year.
Yeah, the quality is going to be good. That is the big win for sure with Major League Baseball stepping in, as I think you can say with confidence that the quality will be about as good as it can be. I thought the broadcast looked great last year after they took over.
They really did.
We'll see how the pre and post game situation kind of evolves. I know those elements did change a little bit.
Yeah, somebody said that they're out of market and they have the extra innings package, and the only thing that really changed was pregame and postgame, which I think changed for all of us, right? Like they used to have a more robust Bally Sports pregame and postgame, and it kind of got reduced down to kind of like a 10-minute pregame kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Bally was creating other content too. They would do,
interviews,
like their coffee thing and other stuff. Whereas I don't know if under Major League Baseball you're going to see quite as much of that. But hey, that's why we're here, right?
I was going to say I have a solution to that. Us. We can be your pregame and postgame. So make sure to keep it locked right here. A great way to do that is to become a diehard, because if you do, you can join us tonight at 7 p.m. in the Discord lounge, where I will be hosting the very first edition of Squeeze Play. We got 3 contestants. They're going to be competing for a free t-shirt of their choosing from the PHNXlocker.com. And the questions are absurd, so get ready for some fun. Should I give them one of the questions now so the guys can kind of prepare? Because I don't know if they're here or not, but
Cogs is here.
Cogs is here. So I'm going to give, if you are here and you're playing in tonight's game, Cogs, I'm going to give you one of my questions is, who is the least problematic host at PHNX? And it's not Jesse. I'll tell you that. But of course, you'll get all of this wonderful content that we're offering and everybody has to offer. They were just doing a Discord chat with Flex and Espo just a minute ago. So join us today over at gophnx.com. Become a member. You get all Jesse's written content. You get access to our Discord lounge. You get discounts with our partners, discounts to our events, and so much more. So sign up today. Of course, another great place to check out is our friends at Samburos, where you can go to Samburos and get some amazing Mexican food. They were voted Arizona's most loved Mexican restaurant. They have party platters. They have everything you need to feed you, your family, your friends, everything. And also, they have a very convenient drive-through, some incredible breakfast options, some amazing coffee. You can go there all day long. So make sure to check out their locations throughout the Valley and in Flagstaff. You're never far from delicious, time-tested Sonoran-style recipes, lovingly prepared since 1986. You can check out their newest locations in Goodyear, Peoria, and the one up by me on I-17 in Jomax, or visit samburos.com to find one near you. And I have to say it that way every single time now, because Jesse out accented me the other day, and I can't let that happen. So
I have that. I don't know much Spanish, but
he nails it.
The words that I do know, I say them properly,
correctly,
which I feel like I get more props for than I should, because it's part of learning the language.
It is.
You don't get to
It is.
You don't
get
this
man has studied abroad,
everything.
so of course you know for sure that he knows what he's talking about. But
yeah, clearly, because I studied abroad for one semester, in Budapest, Hungary. That means I am the expert on all accents of all languages.
And time-tested Sonoran food. You're definitely our expert. But let Samburos cater your next meal, big or small. Order online or find one near you by visiting samburos.com. OG's brands, by the way, another great way for you to relax. They have amazing product line. And if you're not just I'll tell you this much, sometimes you're not looking just to relax, right? I've had people tell me Those edibles, they make me so sleepy. They put me to sleep. Check out a sativa from our friends at OG's. Those sativas can sometimes give you a little pep, maybe some energy, maybe a little happiness in your life. They have all sorts of different strains to try, and they have all sorts of different options for you, including their sleep edition gummies if you are looking to get a great night's sleep. So make sure to check out everything they have to offer. To learn more about OG's gummies and where you can find them, head on over to ogsbrands.com right now.
Derek, before you get into your next subject, can we just talk about something that I noticed somebody point out in the chat?
What's that?
Jesse's wearing a hat.
I am wearing a hat.
It's a Phoenix Suns hat.
They asked if it was the first time Jesse's ever worn a hat on the show.
It is not the first time.
It is not the first time, but it has been a while.
Yeah.
And it is partially because I just got a haircut recently, and
he doesn't like it.
They were just cutting hair and cutting more hair, and I was wondering if I was going to have any hair by the end of it.
It's a horrifying experience to watch in real time as you're sitting there in the chair.
Once they start cutting off entirely too much in one area,
you know that it has
really tell them to stop
even
at that point.
Yeah.
And so I thought about wearing a hat earlier in the week, but at that point I had such a small amount of hair that it would have just straight up looked like I was bald. So now we've reached the point where there's at least enough that kind of peeks through.
I've learned something about Jesse this week. Yeah, he thinks it's important that hair peeks out of the back of your hat for some reason.
Not the back necessarily,
or
just like the sides, the front, like just somewhere. At least
I've never
for
in my
me personally.
life felt like that was a necessity in order to not know if someone was bald. But I don't. My hairline is getting worse by the day. So what do I know about? But
you have facial hair though.
I do.
Feel like it's different. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, and my facial hair used to be a darker color before I started doing this show with you, and it went gray very fast. It went gray extremely fast, mostly during the lockout. But anyway,
Jesse Jr. can be a little,
he's
over the top sometimes.
He's a little extra, for sure. Well, we do have to pose one question because we have information coming out now that our beloved backup catcher that we just like me with JD Martinez, it was a certainty he was going to be a part of this team. Gary Sanchez has signed with the Brewers on a 1-year, $7 million deal with a mutual option for a second year. And we do have to ask the question if the Diamondbacks will regret not signing Gary Sanchez there on a 1-year, $7 million deal. That seems like a fairly good value for a guy that could have solved more than one problem for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about Gary Sanchez, and I think someone brought it up on a mailbag question one day, and I was like, yeah, I like it. As long as, like, if the Diamondbacks had gotten JD Martinez, Gary Sanchez was probably a little unnecessary at that point. I mean, he still could have been your backup catcher, but you're maybe shooting a little higher there than you need to. But if the Diamondbacks were getting a left-handed designated hitter, which they ultimately wound up doing in Jock Peterson, Gary Sanchez made a lot of sense. He can back up Gabby Moreno, and he can also take some of those DH at bats against lefties, or he could catch against lefties and, like Gabby Moreno, get some DH at bats. I think it made sense all the way around. He ultimately goes to the Brewers, 1 year, $7 million. There's a mutual option apparently for 2025 in there as well. I think it made a lot of sense for the Diamondbacks, and I'm still very curious to see how that spot shakes out for them.
Yeah.
Like, who's DHing against lefties? What does that ultimately look like? Because right now the options that they have there are not particularly inspiring at the moment.
Well, and the Brewers already have William Contreras at catcher, right? So
why do you have to do that?
I have to say it like Bert. And he's a very good catcher offensively. Like it's kind of at times one of those situations with Gabby Moreno felt like, okay, well, we have our catcher, so we really don't need that good of a backup. But Gabby isn't going to play every single game. Like we said, ideally you would like to see Gabby probably get like close to 40 games off during the season. And that's no just a handful of games. That's a lot of games that in theory you would like to see him not behind the plate. So it would be great to have somebody like Sanchez, who, like I said earlier, solves a couple of different issues for you. When you see the Brewers go after him and have him backing up a guy that slashed 289, 367, 457 last year with a 5.4 FWAR, then you kind of think like, well, again, the Brewers aren't going to have William Contreras start, all 162 games. So like, you do need that guy. You also have him as that DH option as well with slashing what he did against lefties. So like, I don't know. There's a lot to like there. The value seems fairly good at $7 million for one season. Like, that does not seem like you're asking too much. And also, like you said, they didn't get JD Martinez. So this guy now completely complements their lineup versus, before it would have been a little bit redundant to have two guys that were probably going to have similar, slash lines, both with the same, strengths.
Yeah, I think like just as a backup catcher, Gary Sanchez, like that's maybe a little overkill. I don't know if he would have been interested in a role like that.
Sure.
Like, oh, I'm going to play 40 games. Great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Gary Sanchez hit 267, 304, 680 against lefties last year. If you can get that guy in your lineup against lefties on a pretty much everyday basis, that's really big. I mean, the alternatives that the Diamondbacks have in that spot right now, you're talking about Emmanuel Rivera.
Daniel Rivera, get it right.
You're talking about, Kevin Newman potentially if he makes the team, who did have good numbers against lefties last year, but neither of those guys are, I'm not so sure that Gary Sanchez can have an 1,000 OPS again against lefties this upcoming year, but neither of those guys are on his level, in my opinion, in terms of what you'd expect offensively against lefties. So it would have been a significant improvement. It also, I think you just feel better like in games where Gabby Moreno sits entirely if he's on the bench, and not in there as a DH or anything.
Yeah. That's very
I think
true.
you feel better about Gary Sanchez being, in the lineup still in those games as opposed to a Tucker Barnhart or a Jose Herrera. We saw last year how big, of a disparity there was between Gabby Moreno and Jose Herrera. And as a result of that, how, the Diamondbacks record in games with Gabby Moreno versus games with one of their backup catchers there was an enormous difference there. And I don't know if the difference would be that drastic necessarily going forward, but I think it's important for, for any team to have a viable backup catcher, like not just someone, from AAA you can kind of plug in there, but someone who has experience and can hit a little bit. And
look what happened last year, Jesse.
Yeah.
Look what happened last year. How, not only was it incredibly insightful, or just forecasting the potential to have Gabriel Moreno be the player he was last year, just to make that trade and have that done prior to Carson Kelly being injured was like Mike Hazen could see the future. You know what I mean? Like that's a completely different situation, because if they attempt to make a trade like that after Carson Kelly is injured, teams will know that they have the Diamondbacks in a position of being able to take advantage of them a little bit. They're desperate.
Yeah.
They need a catcher at that point. You're not going to get Gabriel Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. in a trade.
Yeah, I think that trade was only going to happen in the offseason.
No. But I'm just saying, like, let's say hypothetically Carson Kelly was injured in the offseason and they knew that they would needed to make a move for a catcher because they weren't going to have Kelly to start the season. Just in general, if the information was out there that the Diamondbacks have lost their starting catcher due to injury and now they're trying to pursue one, it allows other teams to be a little bit more, it allows the Diamondbacks to not be in a real position to negotiate well with other teams. But now, I mean, of course, they're not in a great position if should anything happen to Gabriel Moreno, right? Like, now they do need to be thinking about that, because it isn't just a handful of games. It's a lot of games that he could start. And I mean, in this case, Gary Sanchez would have probably been in there in every lineup against lefties. So probably would have been starting, at least just as DH for that purpose alone, close to 30% of the Diamondbacks games right there.
Yeah. I mean, he would have gotten a decent amount of playing time. And there was some question on, at least on my end, going into this for him of like, is Gary Sanchez willing to take a role where he is clearly the backup catcher and, not like he had a good season last year, all things considered. It was a bit of a roller coaster ride for him. He was on a few different teams, but he wound up being a really big factor on that Padres team. He was Blake Snell's personal catcher.
Yeah.
The guy who won the Cy Young Award, made some enormous strides defensively. His defensive metrics were actually quite good in 2023. So coming off that, I was like, I don't know if Gary Sanchez is, wanting to back up for someone. And it turns out he was okay with that, as long as, in Milwaukee, they're in a similar position as the Diamondbacks where they do have some DH opportunity available. And he's gonna be able to contribute there as well.
Castle Freeland with a great point says, thing that bothers me about Sanchez is he has a .304 on base percentage versus left-handed pitching, despite hitting .267, despite having a .680 slugging percentage, right? Like that's That's crazy. But
yeah, I mean, I view that like Gary Sanchez isn't a perfect player. I'm not saying you get Gary Sanchez to hit third against lefties, but you know, you can put up with a 304 on base percentage in the 6 or 7 spot in your lineup.
Yeah.
If that guy is also slugging 700, like that's okay. You're willing to make that trade off.
Well, what does your lineup look like if Gary Sanchez was in there?
Yeah, I think he would probably hit 7th most likely. It would be, you know, it'd be Cattell and Carroll in some order at the top.
Yep.
Gabby Moreno maybe in the 3 hole as he was toward the end last year against lefties. I like that. Christian Walker cleanup, Lourdes Gurriel in the 5 hole. Eugenio Suarez hit 6. That's a pretty formidable top 6 in the lineup against lefties.
Yep.
And then I think it'd be Gary Sanchez in the 7th spot. And yeah, there might be some regression in his performance against lefties. The on-base percentage isn't going to be great, but there's still, in my mind, a big difference between Gary Sanchez and, an Emmanuel Rivera, a Kevin Newman, someone that you don't really know what you're going to get out of, as well as the ability to have him as your backup catcher in general, as opposed to, a Tucker Barnhart or a Jose Herrera, just someone with more experience and more hitting ability. And to Castle Freeland's other point about, the issue of you don't want to take Moreno out of the lineup against lefties in the first place, that wouldn't be part of this at all. Moreno absolutely should be in the lineup against lefties every single day, but you can have one of those guys catch and one of those guys DH. So it would be both of them in there together. In my mind, that's kind of the ideal fit. But we're not going to get that. The Diamondbacks opted not to make that move.
So we're sad. And if we're asking if the Diamondbacks will regret not signing Gary Sanchez, the answer most likely is yes. But hopefully not too much. Hopefully they find some sort of option to back up Moreno, and maybe it could be an option similar to Sanchez that kind of can fill some of those needs. There's just not a lot of guys available on the free agency market.
After Sanchez, there's not a ton available in terms of backup catchers.
It would need to be through a trade. Which
it might be. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Tucker Barnhart or Jose Herrera. Yeah. Those guys just kind of fighting it out. And we interviewed Tucker Barnhart. He's a great guy who has definitely has an ability to build rapport with pitchers. That's a really important thing too.
Yeah.
So yeah, if he can get the offense just turned up like a slight notch from where it was last year, he wouldn't be a terrible option in that spot by any means.
Well, now that we know where Gary Sanchez landed, we know where Blake Snell will land. So that's an inevitability that now Snell will sign with the Brewers. That's of course the truth.
That seems a little far fetched.
I'm just going with it. Well, Elise brings up there in the comment. She says it's the Snell comment. Scroll back up there a little bit, Jacob, if you don't mind. His mouse is dying.
My mouse definitely died in the middle of the show. So.
Elise said it's still wild that Snell and Monty are unsigned less than a week away from catchers reporting, and it is still
it is wild.
It is very wild. Scott Boras clients, the top 4 free agents still remain unsigned essentially, and they're all Scott Boras clients. So yeah, that's great.
I feel like I was thinking about this with at least Cody Bellinger the other day. It seems abundantly clear to me. This is my speculation, but I feel very confident in saying that Cody Bellinger is just not, Scott Boras is just not getting what he wants right now. Like he's shooting for the $200 million over, 8-10 years. He wants the big deal. Cody Bellinger, his surface stats were really good last year, but it's just not out there for him right now. I think a lot of teams are looking at the underlying numbers with a guy like Bellinger and being like, we're not going to be the team that gives him, that gives him $200 million. Maybe Bellinger lands on a more incentive-laden, shorter-term deal when all is said and done. He goes out there for another year and tries to, prove it with better underlying numbers and, try to get a bigger deal next offseason or something. And maybe that's not just the case with Bellinger. Maybe, Matt Chapman certainly has his, he's an excellent defender, but offensively didn't hit much after the beginning of the season. Blake Snell, there's the whole walks narrative. Like all these players kind of have their own little flaw built in, maybe not so little flaw. I imagine is holding up the market for them.
That flaw also is the size of the contracts that they want, right?
Right.
Teams right now are hesitant to give that kind of money long-term to a guy that, again, we've seen it in baseball quite a bit, that doesn't live up to those kind of contracts. I think it's weird, though, because there are teams committing huge amounts of money to players that play in Japan and trusting that they will be able to be that level of a player here in Major League Baseball. And they're probably not wrong about that. But it's funny that they're willing to trust that, yet they don't want to trust the current Cy Young, winner to be a guy that you give a long-term deal to. It's understandable, though. Like you said, some of the numbers definitely point to like a regression coming up. And the last thing you want to do is sign some guy to a huge deal that then becomes a league average player after that, right? So I get it.
Does that give D-backs fans hope for Zach Gallen?
A little bit, maybe. I mean, I don't know though, because pitchers tend to be, pitchers tend to be viewed differently based on their age and things like that. I think Zach Gallen will just be at that perfect period in his career for him to receive that big contract. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There is some hope there. There is some hope that Scott Boras is maybe continues to ask too much, and maybe his guys continue to remain on the market. Perhaps that changes something.
I think Gallen is going to be a much more, maybe not much more, but definitely a more attractive free agent than Blake Snell is right now.
It's the consistency, man.
Blake Snell literally, he just won the Cy Young, but Blake Snell had an ERA over 4 a couple years ago, which granted, I guess Zach Gallen did too.
But Zach Gallen, okay, like one thing that made me instantly fall in love with Zach Gallen, which I'm not alone in this, is the fact that he came in, he set that record for starts in a career with giving up 3 earned runs or less. That is like, it's not perfect, like 3 earned runs every game. That's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but what it is consistent, and you knew what you were getting out of him, and it felt like this was a guy that was going to come in and was going to give you that every single start that he went out. Eventually he came back down to earth, right? And eventually he was not that consistent, but that consistency, I think, is one thing that a lot of pitchers are missing. You look at their numbers from season to season, they go up and down dramatically. They've had great years, they've had bad years, and sometimes guys, especially in baseball, will continue to get paid a lot of money for having one really good season because everybody thinks that they're going to get back to that level.
Sure.
Even if they do regress.
Yeah. I mean, Gallen just threw 210 innings, not counting the playoffs. I mean, Blake Snell has never thrown more than 180.2, which happened back in 2018. He was at 180 in 2023. Gallen will be a year younger than Blake Snell is right now. And Gallen is not likely to have led the league in walks in his walk year. So, yeah, I mean, not to say that Snell is not a desirable free agent by any means, but Gallen just doesn't have like any real flaw. Like he pitches deep into games. His ERAs are consistently low. His peripherals are consistently strong.
Yeah.
He had the one kind of off year in 2021 where he was hurt on, several different occasions. But outside of that, he's really been the model of consistency.
Elise says no other city can let Zach live out his golfer dreams at the Waste Management Open like Phoenix
that's a fair point. Yeah.
Jacob, do we still have that picture in the queue, or is that
it's in the other computer? But I can get it into this one if you want.
Fine. If I was available, I did want to see the mascots pointing and laughing at Zach missing a putt because
a 4-foot putt.
That was part of it as well. Yeah. The athletic. We're becoming an athletic podcast right now. Oh, it is in there. Let's go. Let's throw that guy up on screen. There we go. Yeah. Living his dreams.
They need to stop. He does not look like he's living a dream right there.
Living his dreams.
He looks like he's very angry.
It is hard enough to miss a putt like that when you are by yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you want to throw your club.
When you're with your buddies, let alone when you're out there in front of all of these people and whatever the hell what is that Fiesta Bowl mascot? Is it a sun? What is he doing?
I can't remember his name.
Terrifying. I don't want my mascots to scare me.
Spirit?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
He's horrifying.
Yeah, Spirit sounds like something from a horror movie that we'd call it. But anyway, like I said, we are becoming an athletic podcast now, basically, because they did publish their rankings or their grades of all of the team's offseason moves, and the Arizona Diamondbacks received a B on their offseason. I think that's what a lot of people watching the show that voted in your vote felt like. I felt like B was the most popular answer, especially after the Jock Peterson move. So I think we were spot on. I really don't. That's not terrible. I feel like they were very close to an A, and I think when all is said and done, maybe Jock Peterson makes people, eat their words a little bit, and maybe he proves to them that picking him up was an A. I feel like his attitude is already in a great place as far as, the things he said in his introductory interview and everything like that. But yeah, like Cog says, B+ feels about right. And yeah, I'm not too mad about what they did. I just think that, again, they're maybe a Jorge Soler instead of a Jock Peterson would have been the thing to get him an A. Outside of that,
yeah,
they've done everything that they needed to accomplish this offseason.
I think I have them at an A-. That's probably what I would give them personally. Yeah, getting a Soler or a Martinez, that probably would have pushed them into A+ territory for me. But it's still been an excellent offseason for the Diamondbacks for sure.
It's so crazy where we are from last offseason. And you know what I mean? Like, there were still so many questions about this roster. If guys were going to live up to their potential, who was going to play? Are we going to see Gabriel Moreno play regularly and things like that? What kind of guys Lourdes going to be in a contract year? Like, they all kind of stepped up and exceeded our expectations. But now you have the Diamondbacks becoming a very complete team this offseason.
Yeah. I mean, and I think if you go back to the beginning of the offseason and kind of what we were expecting the team to do, they've far exceeded that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we were talking, there was a report from Nick Piccolo early in the offseason that the team had around $20 million to spend. And so we were trying to figure out, like, all right, how do you get a starting pitcher, an outfielder, a DH? Like, there's a lot of boxes to check for $20 million. And the team ultimately spent far beyond that, right? I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez, like if I had told you at the beginning of the offseason that the Diamondbacks were getting Eduardo Rodriguez, you might not have even had to hear much more to at least give them a B for the offseason.
Yeah.
Like, Eduardo Rodriguez is a better starting pitcher than I think we were really expecting the team to be able to get. And not only did they do that, but they got Eugenio Suarez, who's a perfectly solid option at third base. Even
Pacoda projections be damned.
Exactly. They brought back Lourdes Gurriel, which is another thing we didn't really expect them to want to spend that money.
So there was going to be another need that they were going to have to fill as well. And where were they going to get someone to replace Lourdes, considering that he was a top 5 outfielder available in the free agency market? Like, how do you replace that production of a top 5 outfielder of what is available out there?
Yeah, anyone calling it a B, I think got a little bit greedy, honestly. At least like, I mean, say what you will of like how much MLB owners should be spending. Like, the Diamondbacks should have spent $60 million or whatever. I'm not here to comment on that, but yeah, in terms of like what was a realistic outcome for the team, the Diamondbacks did far more than what really any of us, I think, saw happening. And it's got to be at least I can maybe see a B+, but I would probably go A- for me personally.
All right. Well, we do want to give a shout out to our friends over at BetMGM Sportsbook. If you are going to be watching the Super Bowl, like all of us are this weekend, make sure to get down on the BetMGM Sportsbook app. Of course, you can get down on all those wonderful prop bets. And you can also get some free bonus bets from us by signing up and using our code of PHNX. Deposit at least $5 into your newly created account. Place a wager in that amount of $5 or more at a standard odds price. And once you have done so, you will receive $158 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your wager. And remember, we ride with Blue Gatorade. So sign up right now for BetMGM and use that bonus code of PHNX. Once you place your first sportsbook wager through the Sportsbook mobile application for at least $5, you will receive $158 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms. This promotional offer is not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. And that was Damon, not Shane. I don't even know where Shane is anymore.
How dare you, Derek?
I know.
How dare you?
Shane is with Damon.
Oh.
I mean, they're in Vegas.
So what you're saying is Shane is one of Damon's dogs? Bark, bark. All right. Also, we thank you guys for being here right now on PHNX Sports YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do so now. Drop us a like. We always appreciate you doing that. Make sure you sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss when any of our wonderful shows go live, because sometimes we just go live at 3 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock like we're supposed to. So make sure to sign up and do all that. If you're listening on the audio podcasting side, make sure you subscribe there as well. Leave us a review. We always appreciate those 5-star reviews. Big shout out to Desert Financial Credit Union, because I, once again, am living in a home, and it wouldn't be possible without them. I don't know if I could afford a home anymore. It's very difficult to afford a home in today's market, but Desert Financial Credit Union can definitely help you there. They offer checking and savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and so much more. They have your best interests in mind, and they have our community's best interest in mind. For more than 84 years, Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union. So when you open a free checking account online right now, you can get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. All right, Jesse. Well, we know Corbin Carroll is our MVP, and there's no doubt about that. But there's a good chance that in 2024, Corbin Carroll could once again be an MVP candidate like he was at several points last season. It felt like I felt like his name was realistically starting to come up as a real MVP candidate. And, you know, MLB.com was discussing today some dark horse candidates as far as they were concerned. They did list Corbin Carroll as being one of the contenders for the National League MVP award, but it does seem like there are some definitely some big names in his way now that could potentially prevent that. Mookie Betts, obviously, Ronald Acuna. We now have Shohei Ohtani in the National League, so that's fun. And Fernando Tatis was another one of their candidates that they could see definitely winning most valuable player. I feel like, you know, again, I don't know if the Diamondbacks need one single MVP candidate. Like, I know that sounds silly to say that, but I'm just saying, like, the Diamondbacks are a team right now that are constructed to have a bunch of guys give a really good, you know, put up some really good numbers, put up some really good performances, and win at a team level. It doesn't mean Corbin Carroll couldn't get recognized for that, but I just also could kind of see how some of these other guys are going to be that superstar level for their team, whereas Corbin is probably going to be right there with the likes of Ketel Marte and such, even on his own team potentially. But how can he stand out, and what can he do next year to improve on a really good rookie season that might get his name up there for an MVP?
Yeah, I mean, there was a point, as you said, I mean, there was a point during the 2023 season where Corbin Carroll was very much in the thick of the NL MVP conversation. Granted, it was earlier in the season. It was in the first half. You know, he wasn't quite as good in July and August. No one on the Diamondbacks was very good in those months. But yeah, I mean, he really showed in the first couple months of the year that he could be right up there with anyone in this sport. And I do think that's the case. I do think that Corbin has the ability to at least contend for the MVP award on a year in, year out basis. In terms of actually winning the thing, I think he's probably going to have to hit a few more homers. 25 is I mean, excellent. But to win the MVP award, you probably want to be somewhere in the 30s. RBI, as much as, you know, there's not as many people looking at the traditional baseball stats anymore. I do think that matters some. I'm not sure that he could win with 76 RBI like he had last year. You know, it's gonna have to be probably considerably higher than that. And part of that is just a matter of where he's hitting in the lineup. I mean, if Corbin Carroll is hitting the leadoff spot, it might be hard for him to drive in, you know, 100 runs or something like that. So yeah, I think it's possible. Like I wouldn't rule it out.
He's most likely he's going to have to do it, like you said, maybe getting to that 30 home run mark. That's not that far off from where he was last year, right?
He could get like 30, 35 homers if the RBIs can jump up a little bit. 40
stolen bases.
Yeah, wins above replacement is always going to be king. So you know, I mean, none of these other stats, like if you have a decent lead in wins above replacement, I think you can win. You know, you can win the MVP award even if, you know, Matt Olson hits 48 home runs and you're in the mid 30s or something. So he doesn't have to lead in everything, but probably needs some gains in those areas. And then he just needs to probably lead the league in WAR. It seems like that's kind of the baseline requirement to win the award. Yeah,
it's going to be difficult, but again, it's one of those things that maybe if we put a draft pick as a prize for winning the MVP, maybe then Corbin Carroll would do it, right? Because he doesn't want to do it just for personal, you know, acclaim, personal acknowledgement. There has to be something to help his ball club and the franchise in the future on the line. So that maybe we dangle something like that in front of him, and that can get him that across the finish line. I think Corbin, of course, is going to continue to be an incredible player, and it's kind of weird when you talk about being guilty or being greedy about the what we got as far as the offseason and free agency. I feel like it's greedy to ask for more of Corbin Carroll than what he did last year in a historic rookie season where he won the National League Rookie of the Year. But again, it is going to take a little bit more than that in order for him to be considered the MVP. It's just not a necessity. If the Diamondbacks get out of Corbin Carroll what they got out of him last year, we're all going to be thrilled with that, and this team is going to be definitely on the path to success for sure. But I can't wait to watch baseball. I just can't wait to watch baseball. Today the weather was terrible outside today.
Yeah,
and luckily Jesse hit me up with some good news by telling me that the forecast for next week, when pitchers and catchers report, much nicer.
It looks lovely. It's
sunny,
like
75
degrees like every day.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I think Cogs does make a good point on this. WAR means Corbin needs defensive value.
That's a great point.
I do think there's quite a bit of room for improvement in that area.
Not to
say that he was a bad defender last year. His range was well above average, but we all know it. He doesn't have a very good arm, and that kind of nullifies the defensive value he adds with his wheels, his ability to just get to a lot of balls like the guys can't. So finding a way to bring more value defensively, whether it be improving his arm just a little bit. I don't know how much he can realistically improve in that area, or just like becoming an absolute monster in terms of getting to everything. I mean, theoretically, with Corbin Carroll's speed and athleticism, it feels like he. I mean, I'm not sure there's a ball that other guys can get to that Corbin also couldn't, right? Like Corbin should be able to be basically near the top of the league in terms of defensive range. If he can find a way to really make strides in that area, that could help a lot.
Well, speaking of the weather being beautiful next week and getting out and seeing pitchers and catchers reporting, the Arizona Lottery is introducing a unique new ticket promotion called Arizona Adventure, and there are 3 ways to play and win big in this promotion. One way is to play with the Arizona Adventure Lottery tickets featuring 3 iconic landscapes from around Arizona. And these tickets can have prizes up to $50,000, but you can also check in at geolocated adventures at 10 destinations across the state. And that's what gets me excited about. I love the idea of going on a little geocache adventure, Jesse. And of course, there's all sorts of different locations here for you to check in at. You can visit azadventure.com for details and directions on how to get to these locations and how to check in once you do at destination coordinates on the website. You can also enter tickets online for a chance to win $1 million in cash and Arizona travel prizes. So do not miss out. Arizona Lottery is not just about playing games and winning prizes. It's also about giving back to the state and its communities. Take an adventure with the Arizona Lottery. Visit azadventure.com for more information on how you can take an adventure with the Arizona Lottery for a chance to win $1 million in cash and Arizona travel prizes. Well, we still don't know if there is an illegal Pete's in Las Vegas, so we have no idea how Damon is doing. Jacob said he's fine. I don't believe that. I don't think he's fine. I know like when he doesn't spend enough time at Illegal Pete's, he definitely wilts away and gets very sad and pale. It's incredible. But that's only because Illegal Pete's has the best patio to eat on. It has the best stuff. It has best, strongest margaritas. It has the most irresistible bowls, tacos, salads, burritos, nachos, the reverse nachos. Still haven't tried that. Feel like I'm missing out myself, but the more that they talk about it, the more I need to check out the reverse nachos. Of course, there's the piping hot queso, custom cocktails, beers. Legal Pete's has everything you want. It's a fast casual dining environment, but it has everything you need to enjoy a meal with your friends or your coworkers. So take advantage of Illegal Pete's weekly deals. Kick the Monday blues with $3 margaritas all day long, or ease your way back into the week with $2 tacos every Tuesday. Do you work in healthcare or education? Because if you do, you can take your team to lunch at Illegal Pete's every Tuesday and enjoy buy one, get one free entrees. And don't forget to unwind after a long day at their happy hour with 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. happy hour happening every single day. Illegal Pete's is your go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beer. Well, that's all I got. I'm glad I made it through the show because I'm still a little hungover from pro wrestling last night at the Footprint Center. But Footprint Center remains an incredible venue, by the way. That's why Jesse's wearing the hat. He's a big fan of the Suns. We're also Suns.
It's a big day for the Suns.
It is a big day for the Suns.
Royce
We're also
O'Neal,
a Suns podcast, right?
Big fan of Royce O'Neal. Solid pickup.
Oh, he's going to add a lot of defensive value to that team. And this is
why
a
lot of defensive value.
We are PHNX Suns Junior podcast. So if you want to hear more about this, I mean, get down on the audio show, which we're just going to talk about Suns the whole time. That's all.
Yeah, we're going to explain how Royce O'Neal is like the Geraldo Perdomo equivalent for the Phoenix Suns. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter. I am at @cap_caveman with a K. This maniac next to me is at Jesse N. Friedman. Of course, Father Overlord Jacob can be found on, that's Jesse Jr. We refuse to let him have a Twitter account because
he probably needs a Twitter account.
He does not need a Twitter account. It's a terrible place. I don't want my baby boy on there. But you can follow Faj at Jacob_Franklin4 because he is the 4th best Jacob Franklin and known in existence. But of course, our show is at PHNX_DBacks, and all roads do lead to @PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much for stopping by. We will see you tomorrow. We hope you have a wonderful day. And in the meantime, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you actually get Gary Sanchez for $7 million a year.
We all silly like the mayor.